This fall, a bipartisan group of Montanans wants voters to approve sweeping changes to the state's election system, reforms that they say would strip power from political parties. Montana PBS's Stan Parker reports.
Red Lodge resident Martha Brown might lean left of her surroundings in solid red Carbon County, but thanks to growing up on a ranch in eastern Montana, being a political minority is nothing new.
Even though I didn't always choose the same candidates that my siblings did, I felt like we could always discuss it. We always had good discussions about it. And in the last, I guess maybe I've noticed this since I've been back in Montana, there seems to be less of that give and take.
Those feelings are part of why she's helping gather support for two massive election reforms on the ballot this fall, CI 126 and CI 127.
If you wonder why we have polarization, where we have division, where we can't solve hard problems, it has to do with the system we use to hire people for the important job of governing.
Republican Frank Garner is a former state lawmaker and retired police chief. Now he's helping lead Montanans for Election Reform, the bipartisan group behind the two proposed amendments to the state constitution. Their goal, nonpartisan primaries and a majority winner requirement for the general election. We'll break that down in just a moment.
Vote yes in November, and we'll be able to vote person, not just party.
Despite most of Garner's fellow board members being former Republican lawmakers, some of the loudest opposition is coming from the leadership of his own state party. Here is Chairman Don Kaldschmidt.
We have a great system right now. I'm from a blue-collar background. If it isn't broke, don't fix it.
For more than 100 years, Montana has held separate primary contests for each party. But under CI 126, everyone running for office would go on the same primary ballot, and then the top four in each race, no matter their party, would go on to the general election. Taking those ideas one at a time, why all the candidates on one ballot?
When I got my ballots for the primary, I received 4 ballots. I had to choose one of those to vote on. I'm excluded from considering anyone else on any of those other ballots. How do I, as a voter, hold those people accountable or reinforce good behavior when I can't even vote for the majority?
And why advance the top 4? Garner wants more competition in the general election because more and more races are effectively decided in the primaries, where less people vote.
You use the Eastern District congressional race as an example, right? Where you, in a primary, you had a minority of people voting for a person who's going to move on to the general election in one party and is functionally not going to have any competition. None.
That dynamic is glaringly evident this year. The Democrat in that race, John Driscoll, has already said he's going to lose to Republican Troy Downing. If Montana had a top 4 system, it wouldn't just be these two in the race, but also, say, Denny Rehberg and Stacey Zinn, 3 Republicans and a Democrat. A top 4 system wouldn't change that this area is safely red, but it would mean that Republican candidates would have to appeal to all voters to win, not just the primary voters who skew more partisan.
I can't just pay attention as a candidate to just the primary voter or just what happens in the primary. I have to worry about the general election now because of competition too. So I have to govern more broadly. I have to talk to more people.
But with 3 Republicans and 1 Democrat running in a deep red district, what if the Democrat won just because the conservative vote split 3 ways? That's part of why there's a second initiative, CI 127.
And CI 127 says simply that we have to have a majority winner at the end. And we believe that's important because it causes our representatives to have to build coalitions, govern more broadly, and to be able to say that they enjoy the support of a majority of people.
Getting to a majority in a 4-way race is not a straightforward prospect, and CI 127 by design doesn't address it. It leaves that up to the legislature. And there are 2 apparent routes lawmakers could take. They could enact runoff elections done with just the top 2 candidates, like Georgia does, or they could do something like Alaska, where voters rank candidates in order of preference. It's basically a runoff without another election, done by looking at voters' second or even third choices. And it's that link to ranked choice voting that has opened up a line of attack for GOP leadership.
This is backdoor ranked choice voting. They can call it top four, they can call it whatever they want, but at the end of the day, I've talked with them, and they basically told me that their end goal is ranked choice voting.
Garner stresses ranked choice voting is not on the ballot this fall.
Ranked choice voting does not appear in either one, period. It's just not true. The only way something like that could happen is if the legislature makes that decision.
Alaska tried ranked choice for the first time in 2022. Observers disagree on the biggest lesson from that race. Critics like Kaldschmidt say even though more voters picked Republicans as their first choice, the Democrat won. Others will point out that the race was decided by about 15,000 ticket splitters. Those who picked a Republican as their first choice and a Democrat as their second. It revealed a small slice of voters, but enough to swing a close race, that voted person over party. The debate continues in Alaska, as this fall voters will decide whether to roll back their changes. Whether Montana would go ranked choice or runoff elections would be a whole other debate, and it's one reformers are happy to leave for another day.
Sure, you can, wring your hands about that, but other states have done it. We'll figure out how to do it. If there's a will, there's a way. And that should be the first question. Is there a will? And I think it's really important.
Mary Sheehy Moe was recently the DNC committeewoman for the state party. She supports both initiatives.
We cannot be controlled by our political parties. They should be a vehicle for putting a message forward. And increasingly, it's just that, aye, sir. And I think that turns off. Most people don't want to live and breathe politics.
At the heart of these reforms is an attempt to erode the role of political parties in elections. Primaries would no longer be about picking party nominees, just a way to winnow the field. Kaldschmidt sees no reason to ditch the party paradigm.
The Republican Party has their platform. The Democrats have their platform. The Libertarians have their platform. I think all of us need to look at which one do we mostly identify with. And that has been a system that's worked very, very well in our state, and we've had great representation of this.
The state Democratic Party hasn't taken an official stance. Former lawmaker Dave Wanzenreed sees this as a misguided attempt to change voter behavior.
Well, I think they're a substitute for the hard work that needs to be done, frankly. It'll be easy for us to vote for that and say, well, took care of that, now on to the next thing, and leave it up to somebody else to actually implement it, not pay attention to the details. And again, my concern is we have been persuaded as voters in Montana to incorporate all kinds of things into our Constitution, thinking, yep, that's it, only to find out 5 years, 10 years, 20 years later, maybe we shouldn't have done that.
Other Democrats worry these reforms could promote more moderate Republicans that would be harder for the Democrats to beat.
There are many Democrats who feel like that's going to further weaken our chances of winning. I think it's more important to believe in your message and to make sure that your message is reflective of the majority of Montanans. How do you argue against the proposition that every voter should be able to vote on the full array of candidates? And how do you argue against the proposition that the person who is elected should have been elected by the majority of us?
Because you have 40% of Montanans, don't forget, that don't identify with the party. Those people feel completely disaffected by our current voting system.
What do you say to maybe independent voters who are in that situation?
I'd say you have to pick a side.
Doug Oltroge of Ballantine considers himself an independent voter.
Over the last 24 years, I've probably voted the majority Democrat. But as time has gone on, I have just gotten more and more disenfranchised with both of the two parties.
For independents, since so many races are decided in the primaries, picking a primary becomes a fundamental choice about which races to have a say in at all.
You know, I think I'm going to be filing my Republican primary ballot on the hope that for this representative in the congressional district that I can at least have an impact on that. One of my favorite teachers used to always say, go vote, it'll make you feel big and strong. And anymore I feel like it makes me feel a little depleted. Like it's taken more out of me than what they're going to turn around and put back in.
People are fed up with politics. But at the end of the day, we got a dang good nation here. And we have a good system. It's not perfect, as I said before. But I think we just have to hang in there.
Kaldschmidt also has another missive: follow the money.
CI 126 is backed by elitists that want to control the people of Montana and the people across America. If we look at who's behind this, they're dark money groups.
Of the roughly $5 million raised by Montanans for election reform, the vast majority has come from just 2 out-of-state outfits that don't disclose donors. Garner says despite this, it's still Montanans in the driver's seat.
So the decisions on this are made by the board, and the entire idea about Top 4 came from this group in our coalition. It should not come as a surprise to anybody that the people in power don't want to see more competition. I want you to feel like it matters what you say, not what somebody at the top of a party or government official says.
Those sentiments echo the debate Montanans and reformers across the country were having more than a century ago, in the first decade of the 1900s.
Montanans had been through so many corrupt election cycles, and that there was this growing sense of frustration that my vote doesn't really count.
At that time, parties picked candidates in smoke-filled convention halls, not at the ballot box.
Well, the conventions were forums for the insiders to get together and handpick their cronies. Although you have to give credit to Montanans for not just rolling over and playing dead. We put up a hell of a good fight.
In 1912, voters took matters into their own hands and passed a slate of progressive reforms, including the direct primary system that continues to this day. As the reforms took effect, a prescient editorial in the Anaconda Standard admonished, "If the people do not turn out to direct primaries and take a deeper interest in them than they customarily did in the old convention system, then the politicians will quickly have matters in their own hands as strongly as ever. The success of the new plan will rest with the people."
As much good as these will do, they aren't going to solve every problem. We still have to have good people run. We still have to work together to find solutions. But right now we have a system that incentivizes the wrong behavior, and we have to change that fundamentally.
For Impact, I'm Stan Parker.
And it's not just Montana. Like history repeating itself, a push for election change is building in numerous states. Election reform measures are on ballots in Idaho, South Dakota, Colorado, Arizona, and Nevada.